Welcome back to another episode of A Record of My Father. Here today, we're going to be talking about something that we kind of both do, but you've done for a long time. It's public speaking. And so, what do you have any tips, tricks, or
I'm
just
frightened.
experience? You're still frightened?
Yeah, I'm frightened. Well, I mean, for me, I have a great voice. I've been gifted with that. When I was in, you still there?
No,
Did I
no,
lose you?
I'm here. Why? Why? Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
here. I'm here.
weirdness. I'm on my thing, and then it says,
Oh, you can you click out of the tab or something?
I did.
If you click out of it, it's still we're still in the meeting. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm trying to find you. There you are. Oh, you went away.
Are we gonna redo this or are we
No,
gonna?
no. Should I tell people that I'm a technology executive?
Yeah, you should.
it's I would tell you that it is so comical when you see that, especially with public speaking.
Oh, and
And
I'm getting a phone call too at the same time. This is funny. This is
my
funny.
kind of public speaking was forced.
Yeah.
I took a class at Nova, and I remember, no, it was at Old Dominion. And I remember the guy said, when you talk, we actually we everybody had to do a presentation, like a 3 minute speech. A 3 minute sounds like really, really short, but it's really, really long if it's your first one and you don't know how to do it and you're nervous. And I get dry mouth and I get all these kind of different things that go because you're like, and the one thing I found through years of doing it, and I've given well over 1,000 speeches to, hundreds of people over and over and over again. And I try to get to feel comfortable, because once I feel comfortable with the subject matter, nothing bothers me. I learned so many things. And I remember that I talk a lot with my hands, and I used an overhead projector once, and I remember that my hands do this because I drink more coffee than you know the coffee ban. So for me, when you go and you see yourself shaking when you're trying to point to something, it's not a good idea. So you get a little pointer, and you have a pointer to point on the topics that you want, and you do it like this. And that was one thing that, because when you see yourself shake, then you get worried, then you get upset. A few other things is people, I see them speak, and they start out with, well, I'm really a bad speaker and I've never done this before and it's really rotten. So now let me speak to you. And you're like,
Why do they do that? I
why
don't
would you
understand why
tell
you would
me
ever
that?
do that.
Well,
It
because
doesn't
you're
make any
nervous.
sense to
You're
me.
nervous and you want people to forgive you for what you're now telling them is going to be a bad speech. So instead of doing that, just keep your mouth quiet. Don't tell them. Don't let them. I mean, it's that old phrase, don't let them see you sweat.
Well, the
You
whole
know,
definition of that is just already getting inside your own head, right? The you just
exactly.
delivering that sentence. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you learn how to pause. One of the things that a lot of people do, and I did in the early years, is when you have a speech and it's 3 pages long, you want to get to the end. So you read it fast, and you see people all the time and they read through something and they literally read through it because they don't have a sense of cadence, and then they try to get a cadence and they might get one on the last line, but they're unsure of how to move through the topic. Even if they practiced, and I'm like an avid practicer. Before I go before a group, I want to know, I want to stop, I want to pause at certain things. I will like look and I'll circle something. And I used to write it like uh, uh, in the beginning. I would write out everything, and I would have every line and everything written down, and I would go through it line by line, and then I would see if a line would work. And when I went on the road to speak, when we were starting the business, we were growing. I was visiting all the different cities. I would speak in Austin. I would speak in Dallas. I would speak in 4 different places in LA, Palo Alto, San Francisco, Seattle, Chicago, New York, 2 or 3 times a year, 4 times a year, DC twice a year, up and down the East Coast, Boston, uh, Philly, Atlanta, Tampa. My God, everywhere. The thing is that I learned very early on that it was sort of like, what am I doing here? What am I doing for these people? And we'd invite them out for lunch. They'd come out for lunch, and we tell them what we did the previous year, which is usually like 2 slides, because everybody they get really into the what is it? What's the Slide Master program?
PowerPoint? Talking about
PowerPoint.
PowerPoint. Yeah.
Yeah, Slide Master PowerPoint, same thing. Anyway,
Sounds like the same thing.
yeah, you do that. You do that, and I used to, when I started out, I had like 30 slides, and I think as I progressed in speaking, I got to 8, and I would have 2 that would say what we did, 2 what we didn't do, why, and then 2 on what we were going to do, and then 1 saying something, and then the very last one would be thank you, and so it was like 8 slides long. It was 30 minutes of me pontificating and talking. And now, at first, we did it in a hotel room, and I sat up on a stage and I looked down on people and talked to them. And that was interesting, but it wasn't as much fun as we had this brilliant marketing guy come on who turned out to be, had other issues, but he was wonderful at marketing. Anyway.
You mean like a convention center? Like a convention
Yeah,
room?
like a convention center.
Not a
where you
hotel room. Okay, gotcha.
No, we would rent at hotels. They have huge conference rooms
Yeah,
that will
yeah,
seat
that's what I was
200
thinking.
people.
Okay,
And we
okay,
would,
yeah.
we go to the Marriott and say, hey, we want 150 people seated for lunch, and they'd set all the tables in there. We want a place to stay. Can you be at the front on a podium and blah 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 blah? And you go up there and you spit out your stuff at them, and they'd all eat and go, yeah, whatever the hell, you fool. But over time, the marketing guy said, well, it costs thousands and thousands to rent that, thousands and thousands for the food. Let's go around and just go to the restaurants in each one of these cities, the best restaurant in the city, and say Tuesday or Wednesday, we'll rent it between 12 and 2. We want 4 hours. We'll pay whatever it costs. We'll buy whatever amount of money you would make during that time. You tell us what it is. You write us a single check. You serve these people, you feed them, and you're done. And it was thousands of dollars cheaper. But also in a restaurant, now I had a mic. But you know what? I don't need a mic. In a big environment, I am very, very loud. And I would start in the beginning and I would say, do I need a mic? And they're like, no, we need headphones.
It hurts already, yeah.
It hurts already. So the people at the back, because I would always ask, and I would ask my salespeople to say, hey, if it's not loud, if you can't hear me, then you gotta do that. And no one ever did that. But anyway, I would then walk among the tables like Bob Barker or one of them, and I talked to the people, and I had like usually 2 or 3 screens that were showing the what do you call it? The like first slide, which was welcome, and then I would walk in, I would say, thank you, we've had a great year. It's all to what you have done for us. And then I would usually cite somebody in the crowd and pull them in. Also, every time I went to one of these cities, I'd grab the local newspaper and I'd look in the headlines and I'd make a little joke, just a silly little joke. How about them Redskins, or something, just something as silly as
like a comedian does.
And if they lost, they lost that day, and say, yeah, they're going to the Super Bowl, ain't they? And everybody would laugh. And I mean, and then you just stop. And if they didn't laugh, you would go like, wow, you don't like my product or my jokes, when they would laugh. So it was sort of like that kind of thing. Because then I was keyed in, and it's really weird if you're on stage and people laugh, you feel like you have them. And then you walk around and you just sort of like you build that momentum as you talk. And I mean, people would spontaneously clap. And this is for a product presentation. No one does that. Maybe you do that at Microsoft and they're launching it up there and Steve Ballmer does flips across the stage. But we were like a little $10 million, $15, $20 million company. We did not, but our presence was whoa. And people were always like, wow, and but my speaking got better and better, and usually after about the 6th or 7th venue, because I did 24 shows a year, cities.
Yeah.
Not 24 cities, because I do London twice. I would do Pittsburgh, Philly. I would do every major city that we could rent a good restaurant in, and we would have everybody, and we would invite, bring all your associates in, and I would, because it was a free lunch, and they would get a 30-minute pitch. Wasn't a pitch though, because all I did was tell them what we did. Remember what we said last year we're going to do? Well, we did most of it, and here's what we did. And this is what we're going to do next year. You're going to see this next year.
These weren't current customers. They were
current customers, and they were possible future customers. Because we would say,
melding the two together is a great idea.
You got 10.
That's a phenomenal idea.
You got 80 people that use it. Skadden in New York. So then I'm at Skadden in Wilmington. Well, there's only 3 people that used it there, but they invited the whole office. So there's 10 people, 15 people from the Wilmington office that has it. We have our sales reps there that issue passwords on the fly. We also had the ability at that time to set up a paying password by logging onto our product, and you could log in, you could get your password, and then you were going right away. And our product was really unusual because the way we priced it, it didn't cost anything if you didn't use it. Most people, if you buy something, you got to pay for it, whether you use it or not. You didn't. When you logged on, you paid, and you logged off, and that was it. If you didn't log on, you didn't use it. So I was like, well, if you use it, you pay. And the interesting thing they would notice, my CTO, another brilliant guy, was that when they went back to the office, because usually what would happen is when I went to New York, usage would drop off the cliff because all the big users were at that thing for 4, 3 hours, something like that, But then when they went back in the afternoon, they used 3 times what they ever did. So they used this for everything, and then they would do it the next day, and so it made the weeks that I did this the biggest weeks of the year. So every time I went on the road and did that, it actually added a lot to sales. It wasn't direct. It wasn't you have to do this. It wasn't you need to pay me back. What I did when everybody walked in, I'm a hugger, that. I would hug every person that walked through the door. 80 to 100 people I would hug. And then I had women that had makeup, and I'd get makeup on my suit, and they'd always say, "Oh, I wonder what your wife says." And I said, "Well, as long as it's on the outside, it's okay." Because I always had makeup on my shirt, I had makeup on my suit, and I said, but I never have makeup on my undershirt.
Fair point.
See, I mean, it's like, you don't need to do that. There's all these little things that you learn over time. But I think that the local getting people's thing, like Chicago was another one. We used to always go to Nick's Fish Market, and they had a basement that would seat about 100 people. And we would always cram in like 115, 120 people. And we would do 2 shows, but they're really just lunches. And I would go there, and the tables were so close together that I had to as I'm speaking, and I go to the back of the room, because I wanted everybody to feel like they were part of it, because when you stand in the front and you're in the back, you don't know it. But if I go to the back, and also I recognize certain people in the crowd that gave us suggestions, and I would have a list of like, oh, okay, Sheila from Skadden in Chicago said we should add a blue button. Okay. Oh, by the way, thank you, Sheila. She's the reason that you have the blue button. If you don't like it, it's not her fault. But if you love it, she did it. And then they would that would make people go like, wow, he's actually thanking people that gave him the ideas. And then they'd, of course, ask for money. And I would laugh, and I would say, that's what the lunch is. I made the mistake in the early days of asking questions. Because people said, "Oh, you should ask questions to the audience." Oh my God,
they hate that. You ever go to were you ever in elementary school, and then when you didn't know the answer to something, they always picked on you because you didn't know what it was? And then you say, "Why would you ask me when I don't have an answer?"
I know people that I saw some presentations where they gave out these you had an app that you put on your phone, and you could vote yes or no or up or down. And they would do surveys throughout the course, which I thought was a really
I've seen that.
But I would say like, does anybody have any questions about this new feature that's launched? And then somebody invariably would come up and say, I didn't like the way that it goes. I liked it the old way better, and then they would want to get into a conversation with me with 90 people in the room and just them and me, and they're in the middle of the crowd talking to me. I had one person bring her invoice to me we charged a rush delivery fee, which was $9 or $15 instead of $9. And she said it wasn't a rush. And I was like, because she had the invoice there. Instead of $9, it was 15. And it was like a 200 bill. And so I just took my pen, I wrote on it, and I said, no charge for the delivery. And she goes, well, how will they know? And I said, they'll know. Because I just wanted to end it. Because I just wanted to end it. And she wanted to get me to basically, I guess, go online in an accounting right there and make it go away. And I was like, no.
Bow down in front of everybody or something.
Right. But I did. And I said, okay, no, you're right. If that's what happened, cool. You don't need to verify it. And I said, you're a good customer.
Seems like we're verifying it here.
We had people that would lie. We had many people. Oh, I was kicked off in the middle of the session. I don't want to pay another access fee. Can you give me the free password? Because we had free password. And it changed.
I'm sure that happened a lot, especially with
quite a bit.
Stuff.
We had one firm that had a particular person that used to do that every other day, which was odd, And I don't know why, because it saved, and then we started looking at the free time, and she was going through probably about $500 a month in free fees.
Wow,
she called
that's a
in.
lot.
Okay.
And this is for 95.
Okay. This was 95. Okay. But now let me throw this into perspective. Her firm paid $45,000 a month.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So.
Okay, I see.
And I had salespeople that were pissed off because they weren't getting commission on the 500. And I was like, you're an idiot. Yeah, I am not going to piss on someone because they feel like they need to get $500 worth of free usage, and they have to make the effort, and they have to call in, and they have to ask for a password that changes every other day. So I'm like, I'm fine with that.
I'm not messing with that deal. I'm not messing with that deal.
And it made them feel good because we never argued with them. We never fought with them. No one ever said, no, you can't have that. Never. And there was like so many things that I learned, in speaking to people and talking to them about things. One of the things that I have a really, really, really hard time doing is listening. You're supposed to say, no.
No way. You?
Well,
our time? Listen?
Well,
no.
I would have people call in and they'd have an issue. We're drifting from the speaking thing, but they'd have an issue with something.
Well, I guess in a way, this is public speaking.
It was broken. Something happened. They didn't get something in time or whatever. And I would apologize profusely and then offer it for free. And then they would still go on and on and on and on and on and how bad it was and how it's horrible and how their kids died because of it and their grandmother now had cancer and blah, blah, blah. Blah.
That's odd to me. That's odd to me that they still wanted affirmation.
Right. Well,
that's odd.
I figured out that they didn't want the discount. They just wanted me to feel the pain they had when the problem happened. So when I figured that out, I stopped. I shut my mouth. Hard to believe. I learned this. And I listened to the problem. They would tell me the whole problem. And I would say, well, what would you like me to do? And they were like, I think you should take 10% off the bill. And I was ready to give it to them for free. Okay. And so I'm going like, well, you're right. I should. But I think that it would be better and it would probably even make you feel better if I took 20% off. Do you think that's too much, or does that seem fair? Because you've been egregious. We messed up. We made a mistake. And now you get a little more than you asked for. And they're like, yeah. And then they would log right the fuck back on. And you were like, and they would spend twice as much. And you were just like, that kind of mentality was like, all they really wanted to do was for you to understand, listen, and just and as you said, affirmation. That's what they wanted. They wanted affirmation. They didn't want a discount because it was the firm that got a discount. It was the firm paying for it. They weren't paying for it. It was coming out of their budget.
Well, that's like everybody that calls into what is it? The insurance people. I have a couple friends that work on insurance and they have a
Yeah.
problem and they just the majority of the time is they just put it on speaker or they have like a headset
Yeah.
and then they just mute themselves and they'll just do
Hmm.
something else while they while the person rambles on and
Hmm.
on and on. Yeah, that it seems like a lot of the time people just want somebody to
What
listen
would
to
you
them.
like us to do? I mean, and that took me a long time to learn that. There's a lot of things that I learned. And but speaking, I'm thinking that most of my speeches were in front of customers. I did speak in front of uh DC Council, which is kind of a big deal.
What did you just do? Oh, well, you spoke at Seth's wedding. You just did
Oh
that.
yeah, I just do that. I
Just
speak
did
at
that.
weddings and funerals. Weddings and funerals is usually I did his father's eulogy,
Oh, you did do that
or
too. I forgot
a
about that.
piece of it. I still have that. I did my mother's eulogy. I did my
Mr. Eulogy
father's.
guy.
I don't think I did my father's. Seth did my father's
Did
or
Edwin do
father's.
the eulogy for Seth as well, or just you? I
No,
don't remember.
me and Marianne. Marianne did
That's what I
hers. I
thought.
did
Okay,
mine. I think
gotcha.
the kids said something, or
I remember
you
Seth
know,
William did as well. Yeah, yeah. I can't
yeah.
remember what it
I think
was,
they all
but
spoke, and it was hard. Well,
yeah.
it's your dad. He died, and
Well, I
they
just
loved
I
him.
don't remember because it was 2014 or 20. What
Yeah,
was it?
you
2016?
were young. Yeah, 2016.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's why I don't
Yeah. But I
specific
mean,
memories.
there, I'm trying to think. I was also when I spoke in front of DC Council, that was really cool.
What
I
was
mean,
that for? What were you doing
that
there?
was uh the internet was taken off in the late 90s. The tax situation in Virginia, Maryland, and DC were very different. The 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 state tax from Virginia was somewhere around 6 or 7% when you figured all things in and all the discounts. And Maryland, and I think it might have been as much as 8. They did the same thing in Maryland. Well, it was only 4 the discount in DC. So DC, we were basically paying 4 to 6% more to be in the city, and they wanted to start this new thing, and they called it the New Economy Transformation Act, right?
Yeah.
And it was the year 2000. That's when they were enacting it. And I was supposed to speak because I was a technology person. I was in one of the districts that was going to be affected, and we were going to get all of these things where you hire people and you get a $10,000 credit. Yeah, that are DC residents. You do this, you do all these different things. I mean, we ended up making a couple $100,000 a year for 5 years that we did because then we sold the business. But it was very lucrative for us. But when I heard the name, because I'm really good at acronyms, the New Economy Transformation Act, and I said, "Well, you mean the Net 2000?" And they're like, "What?" And I said, "Net 2000." And they looked at me and they're like, "No, nobody ever thought of that." I'm like, "You just picked the first letters. Net as in internet." And they were like, so it became Net 2000. They put out on a button. We all had our Net 2000 buttons. Uh, we were in a super business zone. So when we sold our business, nobody had to pay taxes on any of the gains. I mean, it was like all sorts of things that were
How
that
does
were
that work?
uh
How are you not paying taxes? That sounds.
well, what it is it was considered we were in a less than wonderful part of the city, and they wanted to create jobs there and businesses there. And we were a technology business in downtown DC, which was kind of silly. But we were close to the SEC, which is where the rules and regulations came out. So we needed the speed. But then as we were going online, we didn't need it as much, but we still needed it. And the what they do is they give you a tax credit. So we owed you owe the government X amount of percentage of dollars for you pay like we pay I pay 4% or 5% state income tax now. You
Mhm.
pay a franchise tax there. Well, these dollars were subtracted from that, so it was a really good, you know, financially saving thing. And I got to speak to. I remember Donna Brazil was there. There was all that was when the council was I don't think the mayor was there. Mr. Cocaine was not there at that
Oh,
time.
the crack smoker, right?
Yeah, David Catania, that's who I remember. He
Yeah.
was the one that
Or
was
no,
pushing the whole thing because
he
they
wasn't
wanted
the
to.
crack smoker though.
Hmm?
Who's the crack smoker again? That
Mayor for
wasn't
life.
Adrian, was it? Nah,
No, no, Mayor
no,
for
that he
life.
was later.
No, they
Who?
had it on. They had it on video. The bit set me up.
They sent
Oh
me
God,
up.
that's. I mean, that's what they had. It was
Jeez.
so funny because he was in there, and he was married, and he was well, whatever. But it has nothing to do with anything.
It doesn't have anything
The-
to do with public speaking.
yeah, the bit set me up. Okay, as far as public speaking goes, that's definitely not a good line to say
No, not a
because
very
that
good
was
public speaking line there.
that they were making memes of that very quickly.
Memes of
Yeah,
that.
they were making memes of that.
Memes of
So
that.
yeah, it was just so funny. It's like really, really, yeah.
Oh, did you say anything about what? Were you afraid of Y2K? Were you afraid of? Do you think everything
Oh,
was
we
gonna
spent
fall?
a ton of money
Yeah.
making sure that we had 4-digit years. That's all we did. We had to
Okay.
change the coding. And
Oh, so
we
it
had
didn't
people.
explode or something.
Yeah, well, the thing is the worry is that if you're at if you go to 2000, that if you only have a 2-digit like 80 97, 98, 99, 00,
Oh.
we'll make it go back to the turn of the century, you know,
Hmm.
instead of going forward. And that is when every computer everywhere, all of a sudden, now you put your month, day, and then 4-digit year. That's why. That's the reason you put a 4-digit year in.
Interesting.
Is
Okay.
because when it switched over, it was like, oh, it'll go back to 00, and everybody was worried, like, well, what will happen? And they didn't really. I mean, and everybody said the end of the world. It will stop. Planes will fall out of the sky. That's what they were saying. All this other kind of happy horse shit. But everybody, I mean, every consultant and his mother was making tons of money at that point. To change everything to 4-digit years, which
Well, it seems like the
we
Mayans
did,
have
and we
just
had
been
no
really
problem.
bad at that because 2012 was the last one, and they were wrong about that too. So I guess
Yeah, they're
I don't know what's the next wrong one. What do you think? 2100?
well,
2100
I
is gonna
think
be the
that
one.
what we're going to see is the question about what's real and what's not. I mean, and that's what's
That's already
you're
been such a visceral question nowadays.
yeah. When you look at the artificial intelligence side, I mean, you know, well, you need it. You know,
You need AI? You think you need it?
I uh I mean, in many cases, I see that it's in search of it's something cool, but when I ask people, so what do you use it for? You know, and it's like, well, it writes a summary of the case, and then you're like, okay, but it's wrong because it has Ghost. It picks up all these other fake cases that it cites, and it says, hey, the reason the wall is green is because the paint that we get from Indonesia is got a green tint and blah 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 blah. And when in fact they don't get the paint from Indonesia, it's just made up. It makes up answers. That's the problem. And it's not. And it's when it started out, it was like 30% wrong. And when you're looking at a court of law, you're like, you can't be wrong 30% of the time. And most law firms are like, you're trying to look in the 99th percentile as to right and wrong. You don't want to be going in front of someone saying absolutely positively this is what the case is when in fact it's not.
What I think
You
is
know.
funny too is that that's for law specifically, but it also at the same time it's replacing. I guess it's really not replacing. It's kind of like a worse version of I don't know, like a painting or a worse version of a script or a worse
Right.
version of a movie. But I think it's funny that for the entirety of humanity, what we've been trying to do is automate manufacturing so that we have more time to create art as humans. Because that's really what you want to do. You want to
Right.
find what your soul's connected to in an
Mm-hmm.
artistic form, right? But why are we automating the thing that we've been trying to do for so
I know
long?
that's it's
I don't
foolish.
understand that. I
I
don't
think that
really.
that when you hear people talk about it, it's like, well, actually, what I would like. I mean, I see automated cars to take me anywhere I want to go. But I don't, is that artificial intelligence? I'm not quite sure. Uh, what I want to see are when I take off my clothes, I throw them into a hamper, and somehow they get washed, folded, and put back into my drawers where they belong. That would to me would be worth a lot of money. Dishes. We now have a dishwasher and we have a sinks and all that kind of stuff like that. And you eat, you put your stuff in the sink, you wipe it off, you wipe off of the stuff, you put it in the dishwasher and you cut it on and do that. That's something I would like to. We try to do automated lawn mowing, but it's not there yet. When you think about when I think about artificial intelligence, those tasks, which are highly repetitive and something that you have to do all the time, will be, it reminds me of what they did with shaves, razor blades. Schick and Gillette owned them forever. And then all of a sudden you have Harry's and them come along and they have a cheap thing that's not $40 for a razor blade, and they just wipe out the market. That's what I'm hoping to see, is that things will come in and be done differently.
Yeah, the Harry's thing is crazy because I went and I bought Gillette razor blades. I've been using Gillette Fusion since the first time I was ever shaving.
Yeah.
And 2 razor blades is $25. $25 for 2 razor blades.
Yeah.
And of course, I've had this stick since I was what, like 16 or something, 15.
Yeah, it costs like 8 cents. Yeah.
Yeah, but the $25. I thought
The
that
margins.
was really funny. I
Yeah.
thought I was blown away by that. And the cream
Yeah.
is getting pretty expensive as well.
Yeah.
The cream now is
But think about it. That's something you do every day.
$20 a can.
Every single
Every other day, but
every
yeah.
day. I used to do it every day when I worked before COVID, and then COVID came along, and then I shave like every 2.5, 3 days. I didn't shave yesterday.
I didn't either.
I shaved. I shaved yesterday because we went out to dinner, and I will shave tomorrow, which is what, 2 full days, something like that. I'm kind of a hairy.
Because if you wait 4 days, then you got to use like an automatic one to shave it down a little bit. Because then the razor blade for me it hurts because the hair
I
is
don't
too
care.
long. Oh, you don't care?
Yeah, my face is just so nasty. It doesn't really matter
My face
anymore.
is just so nasty.
Doesn't matter anymore,
Oh yeah.
Unless, of course, I'm doing a public speak. Then
public speaking.
Yeah. Well, no, I would always do that. I mean, there was like the cues that you do right before I went on. A couple things I would always do: go in the bathroom, try to pee. You do not want to be on the podium thinking about talking to you and talking about the product and have to pee. It just doesn't work. You also want to look in the mirror to see if you got a chunk of blueberry stuck on one of your middle teeth.
Very important.
Because it doesn't really matter what you say at that point. If you have crap on your face or you've dribbled shit down your tie, if I dribble it down my tie, I can always make a joke. And so, hey, this is how we do our product, sloppy. You can do something to make people laugh, and they'll look at it and they'll realize that you're human, and then it's okay. But if you got crap in your teeth and stuff like that, it just doesn't work. I always clean my glasses. I have like 3 or 4 things that I do. If you're like, where are you going? I'm going like to the bathroom. Why? Why are you going to the bathroom right now? We're going on in 2 minutes. And I'm going like, I do a final check. It's what I do.
So that's kind of implicit of your pre-airplane schedule as well.
What's
right
that?
before, as soon as they call boarding, you're like, all right, I'm gonna go to the bathroom. I'm like, what?
Right.
Every
Why?
time.
Well, I don't want to. I really don't like to go potty on the bathroom.
You know what I realize is you're not the only dad that does that. Because the last time I got on a plane, I saw 3 families just looking so nervous. They were sweating. They're like, "Where's Dad? Where's Dad at? Where's Dad?" It's so funny.
They were all in the men's room.
Oh my God, my family's like every other family ever.
Yeah, it's horrible, isn't it? We're just bad people.
Absolutely, it was great. I just smiled and started laughing.
So, what about you? Give me a public speaking experience.
Yeah, we got a couple minutes left here, but I could churn one out real quick. Yeah, I took a public speaking class at not UVA, but Nova, and I think that was great, and that everybody should take a public speaking class or be forced to, really, because you were forced to at Nova. And I did a speech on the snakehead fish. You know the snakehead fish that was in the Potomac that got released years ago, and I think it was the 90s or the 80s, and then now it's just taken over. But it's coming back. We're doing better. And how it can walk on land for 3 to 4 days and like eat snakes and stuff. It eats snakes and frogs. And it's like the worst invasive species that Virginia has ever seen. But that was a really powerful lesson because I was
Hmm.
afraid. I'm still kind of afraid of public speaking, even though I act, which is funny, right? But what I've learned is that public speaking is all preparation. It's all the prep that you put into it. It's not necessarily what you do on stage. It's how much prep
Right.
prior, yeah, that you put
Yeah,
into
and
it.
when you know about cadence
Yeah, that as well.
and when you should speak again,
Rate inflection, pitch
and how fast you
dynamic
should
was
talk,
something that
whether or
we
not you
called
should get
that.
through the program and go and do it right away and keep going to the next line. And this is what we did, instead of and stop and let people digest what you said. Give them one, two, move to the next sentence. You don't have to run through it because
No.
I would start a topic and I would say it if I do it from memory, it's more like less, what do you call it? It's less rote and
Okay.
it's more
It's not as
believable.
robotic. Yeah, not
It's
as
not as
robotic.
robotic and
More
it's more
human
believable and all that stuff. So that to me is a big deal. You know.
memorization.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But not really memorization. It's sort of like the topic,
Bullet
the idea.
points, kind of.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
all I really needed was I had bullet points on there and they'd pull it up and it'd say, we did this product. And then I would just go into like, and that was this feature that was this. And Robin was the one that came up with the idea. I think we had a few other people here and we had one or two in California and also one in Chicago that mentioned this same
Hmm.
feature. And you're the reason that we made it. We didn't do this because we wanted to, because we don't want to
Yeah.
do anything. We just want to raise your prices every year and make more money. And they would laugh, you know, because that's what they
Exactly.
want to do as law firms. So it's the same kind of thing, So it was like you're speaking to the choir, and their budgets get cut and frozen and all this other kind of silly stuff, and they cry poverty even though they grow at 15% every year, And you're just like, really, really, okay,
Really? Well, on that note, I think we're gonna wrap up here. We have about
yeah,
a minute and change left. Thank you guys for listening on this week's episode. Catch us next week and new YouTube channel, by the way. Record of My Father Pod YouTube channel. Go check that out. We got some little clips up there. I think we got the first 28 episodes up. So go check that out.
yeah,
Go subscribe. Go give us some comments. We wanna hear some hatred. I think that's really what we want to
yeah,
hear.
yeah. We need some hatred here. Hatred.
All right,
Go
you got any
hatred.
go hatred.
Go hatred.
Go hatred. All right, we'll talk to you guys later.